All right, a few years back, practically no one in America knew who these guys were, the Koch brothers, much less how to pronounce their name. But now, Charles and David Koch have replaced Dick Cheney as the chief villains for many. For years, they have been using their vast fortune, estimated at a combined $44 billion, to help fund conservative think tanks and politicians. They have been a primary benefactor, of course, for the Tea Party movement. And now they're vowing to spend $88 million going into the 2012 elections. They are the very symbol of the unholy alliance between business and state that plagues this country. And with us are Mark Ames and Yasha Levine, who are the two journalists who, quite controversially, I might add, broke the story about these brothers and the Tea Party in 2009 before anyone even believed them. Mark, you guys broke this thing, and then basically the story was crushed one way or the other. Walk us through what happened with your journalism in the immediate days following the publication of the story.
Well, first, I should say Yasha and I, we worked together as journalists out in Russia for the eXiled, our newspaper, the eXiled. And so we were already, I don't know, attuned to oligarch politics and virtual politics. And, you know, we saw how billionaires in that country really manipulated a fake democracy. So when we saw this Tea Party thing, this is before it got big, you know, they had their first protest rally at the end of February in 2009. And when we saw this thing forming, we did a bit of investigating. We found out all trails led back to the Kochs, who we didn't even know actually when we started the story. And we were pretty surprised, but we thought, okay, this is just like in Russia. So we published this story in Playboy and Playboy.com. And after a couple of days, the proverbial doo-doo hit the fan, and we wound up getting really attacked. Our credibility of the story wound up getting attacked. And the person leading the attack was a woman named Megan McArdle, who writes for the Atlantic Monthly. She writes a blog there. And she later had to disclose that her husband worked for FreedomWorks. She actually admitted she liked the Kochs, as close to them. In fact, on her blog post discrediting our story, she said, "I know the Kochs personally, and I've always found them to be the most honest people, and they don't get involved in astroturfing fake grassroots campaigns." But Playboy actually took the story down, and that's going to be a whole nother story. But it was pretty distressing because, frankly, we saw the same thing. We didn't expect that America had become so corrupted that the oligarchs actually could use their influence in the media, which has a lot of credibility, to discredit a good story. And so really it took a year and a half before our investigation reached something as big as the New Yorker, Jane Mayer's article, which was quite good, in the New Yorker in August of last year. But before then, it was tough, and it really opened our eyes. It was very dispiriting, but it really opened our eyes to, how sort of corrupt and how much like Russia America has become.
Yeah, if you look specifically at the unholy alliance, Yasha, between business and state that is so defining of our time right now, just how powerful and effective are these guys at getting what they want on a state level with no bid contracts in places like Wisconsin, where they may be able to buy energy assets without negotiation, or on policy in general? And how deep is the history? I understand that one of their ancestors founded the John Birch Society. They've been really at this for decades.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They go back, actually, their father, Fred Koch, made the family wealth, the first nut of the family wealth, working for Stalin, building refineries in the 1920s and 30s. And with that wealth, he came back and really started what would become Koch Industries today.
And give us a sense of what they did with that money politically for influence, whether it was going at the Birch Society or now. In other words, what evidence do you have that they are explicitly manipulating policy in this unholy alliance?
Well, their fathers supported, co-founded the John Birch Society, which was a very kind of extremist, racist, anti-communist organization, but it was also primarily interested in promoting the idea of free markets and battling communism, and really they've carried that on into the second generation. Charles and David Koch really took what their father did and expanded on it and streamlined it and made it much more effective and nuanced, so that it's actually very difficult to see exactly how they're influencing politics. But what they're doing is they're moving, their prime concern is to move the Republican Party as far right as possible. That's what they've been doing for 2 generations.
Mark Ames, how is it you can advocate a free market ideology when a core principle of a free market ideology is a market price? In other words, if you're manipulating the cost of oil, if you're, not that the Koch brothers are uniquely doing that, but they're among those that are doing that. If you're artificially keeping oil cheap through subsidies and off-balance sheets of the Pentagon, if you're artificially keeping credit cheap by subsidizing the banking system, which is in the politicians' and the bankers' interests, how can you claim to be in favor of free markets while simultaneously manipulating the core price of credit, food, and oil, which then actually denies us all of the benefits of a free market?
You know, this is something very hard for, I think, Americans, myself, to sort of wrap our heads around. I think the way you have to look at it is sort of, again, the way Russians look at their oligarchy and how they kind of taught me to look at it as well. There's sort of two sets of rules in this world, in this kind of oligarch-run world. There's a rule for oligarchs in which there's no such thing really as hypocrisy. It's all part of the, I don't know, the scam, I guess. And then there are rules for us where we honestly believe that if you're promoting a particular ideology, that you should be consistent and so on. And that just makes us suckers. But to them, it's a way to push their book, to make more money and to increase their wealth. So they'll use the free market ideology whenever it suits them, and then they'll go soft on it in areas where it doesn't suit them. And meanwhile, everybody is just focused on, you know, we're all focused on trying to keep consistent. They understand the real game, and again, I think they learned this from their father, who learned it perhaps from Stalin, for all I know, for all the years he was there, that politics is a very cynical and brutal game. I don't think it was quite as cynical in this country, certainly 30, 40, 50 years ago. I don't think it was as mean and brutal and cynical as it is now. Yeah. And I think the Kochs have a big part in making it that way.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is that as diminishing as all of this is, you guys are on TV with us right now, and the voice of truth only continues to expand. I don't think the unholy alliance between business and state is too hard for folks to understand, and I think the more we explain that, and the more people come to study that, the easier it will be to address it. Before I let you guys go, Mark, I understand you have a reason to keep the men after all.
Well, yeah, who's gonna move the furniture, or who's gonna program the TiVo or something? You know, I mean, maybe we should go John Galt and say, hey, you move the sofa.
All right, listen, thank you both, and congrats again on your early reporting, and we look forward to seeing more of your current reporting. You can check both of these guys out at eXiled.com. Coming up,